Hi, welcome. This is the CaddyInfo Cadillac conversation. We do these on Thursday nights. I have with me Texas Jim from the forums
Good evening, everyone.
and Cadillac Jim from the Snowopolis in the Northeast.
Oh, I'm south of Snowopolis. I'm in New Jersey. It's just a deep freeze. Howdy, good evening.
Excellent. What happens with this is we enjoy talking about Cadillacs and writing about Cadillacs, and so we get together and have these chats. If you ever want to be on live with us on the chat, what you do is contact me on Google Plus and let me know. That way I know who you are and who to invite, and let me know something about you if I don't know you already. And then we can arrange to get you invited to where you can join the chat. It actually helps if you have a headset, because that way what you hear doesn't feed back into your mic. You'll need a mic so we can hear you. If you don't have any of that, what you can do is you can still watch on YouTube or on Google Plus, and you can send us questions while we're on live and interact with us that way. You can also send me data on Google Plus, and sometimes I'll be clever enough to pick up that you're doing so. Or you can go to the forum, and I see that KHE is threatening to join us.
Oh,
so
well.
Good. I'm gonna post another invitation, another one of my standard invitations, so that KHE, if he hasn't seen it yet, will perhaps see it pop up. And so if you let me know that you want to be on with us, then we'll try and figure out a way to help you get on and be comfortable. We can talk to you about what kind of hardware you need. You need about $150 worth of stuff. If you do it exactly the way I'm doing it, you can probably get by for less if you get it at a yard sale. So we have a list of pre-agreed questions. We used to actually do this where we were more organized and had questions, and we're beginning that way again this year. And so our very first panel question is going to be, what are you looking for in your next Cadillac and why? What are you looking for in your next Cadillac and why? Now, part of the presumption of the question is you cannot keep your current Cadillac, one would suppose. So what are you looking for in your next Cadillac and why? Cadillac Jim.
Well, 84 more horsepower and 250 pounds less weight, and 2 doors. CTSV Coupe 2016.
The new CTSV?
Yeah.
Now, are you going to want to pay for it?
No.
So that's kind of the second part of the question is, so you're looking for more power than you have in your car.
Well, I'd like to update. Mine's the 2011, and that's the 2009 design when it first came out. So it's a bit dated in 2015, 2016.
So what would that update be worth to you, though, Jim?
$10,000–$15,000.
Your car realistically is too fast for you. You know, more power than you need already, right?
No.
When the weather's
cannot.
Unless you're laying rubber all the way down the straightaway, you need more power.
When the weather is warm,
power.
when the weather is warm enough for it to get good grip, no, it could use more power, and that temperature is about 40–45 degrees. When the temperature is below 40–45 degrees and the pavement is cold, but then it doesn't get the grip it does at warmer temperatures. Yeah, and below 45 degrees, no, it's got plenty of power. 556 horsepower is enough.
So when the Delta gets down to 15K.
Oh, well, that's just, you asked me, cold, and I threw something out. But that's, I'm not willing to break the bank. My car is still quite young and has fairly little mileage. I'm spinning up the odometer, but I'm driving less miles just the last couple of weeks. So I'm hoping that, also, spinning up the odometer on these cars doesn't necessarily, if you garage them and take good care of them, it doesn't necessarily cause a problem. And when I bought it, I figured on having it until people asked what it was, like I did the Eldorado.
No, I think your car would actually be a good long-term car. You've got, the LSA should be flat reliable.
Yes.
And
I haven't even taken the engine covers off yet. The only thing I've done is push washer fluid in it and have the oil changed a couple of times.
And Kevin, I see you're out there. If there's something I can do to help you find your way into the chat, let me know. I'd love for you to join us, but I'm not sure if you can't tonight because your headset isn't doing right or some other thing, or if I'm not doing the right thing to help you get in. I'll send another round of invitations just in case. Texas Jim, what would you look for in your next Cadillac?
Well, based on my last trip to the dealer, when I went in and sat in a few and done things, the CTS coupe fit me pretty well.
Yeah.
You said because it's where your knee goes was different in the coupe than the sedan.
Yes.
Now
Yeah,
the coupe can't hold the wheelchair though, right?
I don't know.
Can in the trunk's huge on those things.
I've got to take mine back in a few days. It's nothing major, but a couple of things that they fixed the other day.
Yes.
They didn't fix it to suit me, so they're going to get to do it over.
Good.
And I'm going to call ahead of time and make an appointment and ask my service advisor if they have a coupe. And if they do, I want it.
Yes.
And I'll tell them, no, I'm thinking about one, and I sat in one and liked it, and all this kind of stuff. And I'll see if I can get one. I'll see if I can get one to drive for a day or two, and then actually figure out if it really fits or not. You know, sitting in one for 5 or 10 minutes is different than going out and driving them for 2 or 3 hours.
Absolutely, absolutely. Welcome, Kevin, KHE from the forums.
Hello.
You're just in time for our first question of the evening, which was, what are you looking for in your next Cadillac and why? What are you looking for in your next Cadillac and why? And tell me if you need a minute to think or if you're ready to expose.
I'm going to need a minute to think.
Okay.
Then I can continue to expound.
Okay.
I want one that's comfortable in my driving position. I don't want to be cramped or poked or prodded. And I won't buy one if I am. But in my short acquaintance with the coupe, it fit me and my body shape and the way I sit and so on better than the sedan did, which surprised me. And it even fit me better than the XTS did. I just didn't really care for the XTS. I had one.
I didn't either.
Well, I drove one. I drove one for 3 days while they had my car the other day.
That surprises me because on paper the XTS is the perfect update to the DTS. If you took the DTS and updated every system, you get an XTS.
But it don't fit. It don't fit. There's just something about it, the ergonomics, and no matter how I adjusted the seat or how I adjusted the steering wheel, everything just, for me personally, you know, it just didn't fit. And now, I like the way it run. I like the way it run. It ran well. It drove good. I like the way it drove. It held curves good, and you know, you could really put it into a corner hard, and it would just pull right on through. And the speed limiter is set at a reasonable speed. It's at 125, and it gets it real quick. It really surprised me how quick it would do it with that V6. I wasn't expecting it to do it as quick as what it did. So I liked the way it run. I liked the way it drove. I liked the way it handled, but I just didn't like the way I fit in it. That was the only drawback. And
Kevin,
if I don't fit, there's no point in buying a car.
Oh, no,
planning on keeping for 100,000 miles.
No, I totally get if it doesn't suit you, it doesn't suit you. I'm just shocked that it wouldn't suit you because
I am too, but it just didn't.
Well, there's something with these cars today that they just, I don't know, they're putting seats in them that make you, they're like you're sitting on an inner tube. They're not even comfortable anymore.
But when I sat in the CTS coupe, I liked it. And surprisingly, it was real easy to get in and out of. I didn't have to, twist around and go through contortions, getting in and out of it like I do on some of the others. And because y'all have to remember, I'm not near as young as y'all are.
Oh, I think that must be the different door size that suits you.
No, the seats are different. The interior is different on the CTS.
The ATS didn't fit me too bad, but the trunk on the ATS is the killer on it. There's no trunk.
Really?
Yeah, it's about 10 cubic feet.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Now, wait. I will say this about the ATS trunk. Because of the way it's shaped, it actually passed my vacation test. And my vacation test is whether my whole family could take their bags on vacation. And because of the way the ATS trunk is shaped, where it has the center part of it's lower and then the two sides are higher.
Right.
Because of the way it's shaped, I could actually put the gigantuan suitcase that my wife travels with that holds a week's worth of stuff and 2 regular roller bags in the trunk of the ATS. So that was one of the things I specifically looked for when I did my ATS test, is whether it would pass my luggage requirement for the family of 3 to go on a vacation for a week, and it did.
Now, I didn't have the wheelchair with me to see if it would fit. And even if it does fit in there, how much room would I have left?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll go in that center cubby, that center space that I remember from the trunk. I'd have to go look and see on the blog, the article where I did that discussion.
But if it did fit down in that center, that's going to take up all the room, and everything else is going to have to be piled on top of the wheelchair. And then every time we stop to get out, I'll basically have to unload the trunk, get the wheelchair out, reload the trunk. Then we do what we're going to do, get back to the car, unload the trunk again, put the wheelchair in, load the trunk back up again. So,
why don't you put the wheelchair on top?
Well, the ideal would be if you had a wheelchair carrier on the bumper.
Oh.
So.
I think that's what people do, is you get a wheelchair carrier like a bike carrier for the back of the car.
So. No, I just get a bigger car.
It doesn't rain.
I'll just get a bigger car with a bigger trunk.
Yeah.
I sat in one of those XTSs when they were performing that wonderful recall on my sedan DeVille there with that key where they put those clamshell things. Don't let them do that. They apparently one of my keys was a hardware store key, and I didn't know that. So instead of putting the plug in the factory key, they put these hideous, huge. The key is about the size of the fob now. But I went in a sec. I asked the guy. I said, why didn't you come out and ask me about this, before you just did it? And anyway, I'm going to get another key made for it because I can't stand that key. But I sat in one of those XTSs.
Now, are you talking about the recall where they fill up that hole in the key?
That's what they should have done to mine, was put the plug in the key. And I have a key just like yours. That's the original one. And I have the second key, I think, was a hardware store key. So because that plug wouldn't fit in the non-GM key, they put these giant clamshells over both of them, and the key is about the size of the fob now.
I'd take it off.
Oh, I'm going to put it in a vise and get rid of it.
I told them not to do the recall on mine, and I signed a little paper, basically said, leave the blankety blank thing alone. I want it just the way it is.
I wish I would have done that, because I had the car stored away for the winter, and they kept wanting. I said, look, I'm not bringing it in. There's snow all over the roads, and they said, well, just bring the keys in. But anyway, I sat in one of those XTS. The XTS things they had in the showroom, and the seats felt like I were sitting on 2 inner tubes in there. And I said, what? And they just fit me just so tight, and they were so hard. I said, these are just not even comfortable seats at all. That was a real negative for me for that car. And then the trunks they're putting on the when they style these cars, there's no deck lid area to the trunk, so the trunk opened up and it was pretty big.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you couldn't get anything of any size in there because of the opening was so small, you know,
Right.
to get in
Now,
there.
I did. Obviously, while I had it, I checked, and, our wheelchair fits just fine. And the trunk is big enough that it fits, and then you can turn it a little bit, and then you've got a good bit of room to go ahead and put your other bags in without everything just being all piled up on each other. So
Yeah.
the trunk in the XTS would suit me, but
Yeah.
I just didn't like the driving position. I
I
didn't really
didn't.
notice. I didn't really notice the seats being that uncomfortable, but I
I
just didn't
just
like. I don't know. There was just something about the overall driving position of it that I
I
didn't
guess
like.
I guess I'd have to drive one. I'm just not. I just wasn't
So
wowed, when I went to when I looked at it.
Well,
I put a.
the one to test drive is the all-wheel drive V Sport. The 410 horsepower twin turbo 3.6 liter in the XTS. That's the one to test drive.
Yeah,
Because that one
it's going to have different seats.
would make all the fun.
Probably the seats are probably harder in that one than the normal one.
Or you can get the. Can you get the Recaro seats in that, Bruce?
I don't know that answer.
Because I've driven some with Recaro seats, and I like those.
Because I like the Recaro seats also. The journalists actually liked the standard seats better than the Recaro seats in the V's, but I don't know. I think I've always liked Recaro as a company. So keeping in mind that Cadillac has a year's supply of ATSs available, who should we be recommending the ATS for? So don't tell me you don't like the ATS. I don't want to hear that. What I want to hear in this question is, who would you recommend the ATS for? I actually do recommend ATSs to my friends, and my wife loves her ATS, and I enjoy driving it, and make it an ATS when I go to replace my V.
I've
But
already I've already recommended to my son to go drive another one because he's thinking about getting rid of his Honda Accord and getting something a little quicker and more sporty than the Accord to drive as an everyday car, or he can leave his BMW Z4 in the garage, when it's bad weather. Because
right.
he only drives it. He only drives it when it's nice and he can put the top down and all that.
Oh, anytime we can get somebody to go to a Cadillac from a foreign car, I'm all for that.
So everybody out there that's driving foreign cars, come get an ATS.
Or at least test drive one, see what you think.
Yeah, at least drive one.
Yeah.
Leave your preconceived notions at the door, though.
Oh yeah.
Because all of the automotive riders, they praise it. They just love it.
Yeah.
And I haven't driven one, so I can't give my opinion on it.
Well,
I haven't either.
If you talk to somebody in the German car import community, they're convinced that Cadillacs are low-tech clunkers with everything designed to wear out in 60,000, 80,000 miles.
Yeah, I've talked to people like that.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So there's two things.
I've got pushing almost 198,000 miles on that STS that I bought in 2006 with bad head gaskets that I repaired. So.
Yeah. Well, I had a '59 Chevrolet I drove for 215,000 miles through graduate school. I actually drove the wheels off of it. The front spindle snapped one at a time, about 10,000 miles apart, around 200,000 miles. And then I sold it to a preacher after I got it back in shape, and he drove it for several years. So the rust in Boston got it.
The ATS is light and tight, is what I would say after having driven one quite a bit. It weighs 3,400 pounds, so it's actually 200 pounds lighter than like the mid 80s or early 90s Cadillacs were, and it has more power than they did. So like if you looked at my 92 SDS with 200 horsepower out of the 4.9 liter, then my wife's ATS weighs less than that car did and has 72 horsepower more. You know, almost half again more.
Well, that's only part of the story. It's going to have a better transmission, driveline, wheels, tires.
It's got a 6-speed transmission. It's got much more aggressive. If you actually look at this car, and this is just an ATS premium, but if you actually look at this car from the rear, it's got, you know, staggered wheels back and to front slightly, but the tires on it are actually aggressively wide, if you see what I mean. I mean, they're not just sedan tires. It's clearly a sports car.
Well, one of the things that I learned very quickly that my car had in spades beyond all expectations is grip. I was coming home from work a couple of months ago and I came to one of those 270-degree freeway ramps, reeled in a Cooper S who was playing sporty car. And surprised me a lot more than it did him. Because I wasn't even trying. He just got in my way. And that's happened more than once. And I've had Cooper S's following me get wide-eyed and try to figure out what kind of car it was. And,
the ATS absolutely doesn't have the same pull as my, 4.4 liter supercharged V8 and the STSV. But the big difference is not on first acceleration, right? The big difference is on what I would call the second breath, that where the supercharged V8 keeps pulling. The faster you go, the quicker you go.
I'm talking about handling. The ATS is going to have that in just about every model. They're going to have handling, grip, ride responsiveness, and confidence of driving in any manner that you're not going to expect. And I've known some BMW people, and they are not really happy with every little aspect of their cars. Most marques have a code of silence. A Jaguar driver will not speak to a Cadillac driver, for example, at all. And there's a reason for that. They might learn something. But the problem with the BMW drivers is that the cars aren't perfect. They have a lot of models. They change the models a lot, but the cars are far from perfect. Cadillacs are nearly always to a T, very well thought out. You don't have loose ends in the concept in a Cadillac.
But what I was trying to describe though is with the ATS, it has plentiful power. It doesn't have as much power as my V does, but
practically nothing does.
But where you notice the difference, right, is if you stay in it, then the V keeps accelerating faster versus the ATS. The big thing that I really do like about the ATS though is the shorter wheelbase makes it feel more nimble.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be careful not to turn too tight still, and I've driven my STSV for 4 years now, and I have to be careful not to turn too tight with it. Whereas with the ATS, because it's got the shorter wheelbase, then you can just whip around the corner and not worry about
hooking the curb.
Cutting the corner, hooking the curb. Yeah. Well, now I still don't know. Now, of course, what I want is that they brought the ATS-V out last year with the twin turbo V6 instead of by the end, late in the spring, and then there'd be some used ones for sale a year and a half from now. But because they're so slow bringing it out that there's no used models available.
Well, there's no used models available. That says something. The car apparently gets snapped up when the price is right.
Well, that part. So let's talk about that for a moment. I mean, this is kind of a divergent from our planned questions, but look at the way the CTSVs have held their value. I mean, the CTSVs, if you go to buy one, they're still costing $39,000 and $40,000 almost no matter what year of the cars like Jim's, from the
I noticed that.
2009 to the 14s.
Yeah,
And so,
Bruce had to find a Porsche dealer who didn't know what the damn thing was to get a deal I could afford.
but they're still holding their value. I mean, you know, what other Cadillacs have done? Yeah, originally it cost $70,000. Now it costs $40,000. I get that, which is a lot at my house. But you know, my car cost $70,000. Now it would go for much less than $40,000. And so that's what I'm trying to point out, is that the V Series has actually held its value very well. And so I think what Cadillac may be missing on some of the other models that aren't holding their value as well is exactly what they did on the V Series, which was make it as good as you can.
Yes, exactly. And also an older one that has a few miles on it and is out of warranty is affordable to drive. You can drive these cars. When's the last time you saw a 10-year-old BMW or a 10-year-old Mercedes? They're out there, but Cadillacs stay on the road. You know, people can afford to drive the damn things.
So let me throw our next question out.
I like the fact that they do depreciate, because then they can afford them.
Yeah, that's true. There is that.
And that's how I buy them, is I wait until they depreciate and then write a check. But okay, so here's what should Cadillac be doing to market the ATS to new college grads who are getting their first professional job? How would you market the ATS to that crowd?
Give them some kind of special deal that, such as the GM employee discount. Huh? What did you say, Kevin? Did you say something, Kevin?
That or just go on these go on these campuses with a car and let these kids drive them.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes, they have to. That's the key: is get people in them and drive around the block a couple of times.
Who do you think is the natural? Who's the natural population for the ATS?
Guy with a new wife or getting out of college with a girlfriend.
See, I think they were targeting, you know, they made it as a clone of the last BMW 3 Series.
Or
so if you look at the natural, if you look at the natural population of the BMW 3 Series, who would you say is buying the BMW 3 Series? See, I think about it being young professionals, exactly.
Well, let's see. Let me think. I remember an old joke about a cactus. No, I'm not. Let's don't go there.
But it's people that can't, you know, the buyers of the 328 can't afford the 335, and the people that are buying the 335 are the people that can't afford the M3. But it's people that either, you know, they're getting a big enough bonus that it pays the lease out for them, or
there's people getting up anymore.
Say again?
Who's getting a bonus anymore?
Where are these people?
Problem.
How do we market to them?
Yeah.
But that's who Cadillac's got to be selling the ATS to, right? So how do you market to that crowd? To Wall Street and Silicon Valley and college campuses, as Jim pointed out. But, you know, bring the driving show to the college campuses, yeah.
Not only that, but you got to make the car affordable. You can't be trying to sell a kid right out of college a $65,000 car.
Yeah.
You're just not going to be able to do it.
So I've said a lot about that, but for tonight I'm gonna turn myself away from that topic, and the reason is, okay, so Cadillac's got the ATS they've got, and they're not marketing it properly. So let me constrain our question to, if you're gonna have to sell a $55,000 ATS, how do you sell it to a young professional?
He's going to have a deal. Yeah.
He's going to have a 7-year loan. What else does he need?
Lease. Use a lease.
Yeah, 7-year lease.
Well, not 7-year. Lease is 4 years. But it's the same difference, because at the end of the 4 years, then you don't have any equity in the car to speak of.
Right.
You get a special deal on buying it, which is equity in a sense, but you're basically renting the damn thing. And
actually, you don't. You don't. Most of those leases are structured where if you lease a car, and you want to buy it at the end of the lease, they want more. The buyout is more than what that car is worth on the open market these days.
Because the high residual values, in order to keep their lease too low, they subsidize the residual value. But should Cadillac be doing that for right now? See, I think it's one of the things they have to go back and look at, instead of putting another $1 billion into sending two independent filmmakers to Nigeria or to the Sahara again, that spend that money on subsidizing lease payments for college graduates.
And once you can get some market penetration by doing that, then you can gradually wean off of it.
Yeah.
But you've got to get some kind of penetration. And you're going to have to do whatever you've got to do. If you have to subsidize the lease, create an artificially high residual to lower the lease payments to get them in it, then you're going to have to do it. Because once they drive it and like it, then they're going to tell their friends they're working with.
Now, I will say you cannot get there in new media by just going to people and saying, hey, you have a mommy blog, or you have this or that. Do you want to have the ATS for the weekend? I don't think that gets you the penetration that you're looking for. It doesn't get you the consideration that you're looking for. You actually have to build advocates within the population. You can't just give them a sample, a taste of an ATS. You have to somehow get the ATS in their driveway.
Yeah.
In their garage.
So taking driving schools, or maybe that's the wrong word, but taking the cars to the college, setting up a weekend where it's going to be pretty weather, and get the people out there, the ones that's fixing to graduate, the ones that's going to go on and get a decent job and can afford the lease payments or payments, depending on what they want to do. Get them in it, subsidize them up to a point to get them in it, and the majority of them are going to like it. And then if they like it, then that's one of them that Bob tells Joe, and then Joe tells Sam, and Sam tells Barbara, and so on. And that's the way I see it at this point right now. That's the only chance they got.
What would you think about a new graduate, new job celebration deal, where you offered new college graduates, people that are going to graduate during the next semester and already have their job lined up. If you said, hey, we'll give you the car now, and you don't have to start making payments until you start getting paid. It's like a student loan deal, right? You borrow the money up front, but you don't have to start paying it back until you go to work. But the point is, you get it on the college campuses with these young professionals who already have their jobs lined up.
You could also work with the larger employers when the hiring is, when it's the applicant's market, to make deals with them where they can offer a signing bonus or a reporting in bonus of the down payment on an ATS. Payment or something.
Exactly. How corporations offer an ATS as a perk.
Yeah. And they have to drive it a year, and then they can trade it in if they want their damn BMW. But if they drive it for a year, they're not going to have another BMW.
Because to Kevin's point, who's making bonuses these days? But I can tell you what they're saying. Google, and when these guys are fighting for programmers, they're offering them $100,000 and $150,000 signing bonuses. It's like
that's rare, though.
Absolutely. But GM ought to be wired into that, where they're offering an ATS to Google, at a wholesale price, in order to get them on those corporate campuses.
Right. If you go to a rental car place and you want to rent a Cadillac these days, what do you get? What do they have?
It's ATS.
Oh, God help us. Well, that's probably not as bad as it sounds.
Well, the ones I've seen, and I may be wrong, that I always rent from National when I'm traveling, and I think the ones I've seen are, yeah.
The problem is they're not selling the DTS anymore, and if you want somebody to buy a car, you show them a car they want. You don't show them the car you want them to buy. You show them the car they want to buy, or drive.
No, I'm saying if they got this surplus of these ATSs, why not put them in the rental fleets? I mean,
yes.
Well, they promised not to do that to some extent. I mean, that's how they used to get by with overproduction, is they would sell them at at wholesale to the rental car fleets.
That's a Ford trick.
And the problem is it ruins your. Now, National says they actually have Cadillac ATSs now, so never mind. But clearly, Cadillac's already taking advantage of that.
No, I just wondered, because it's like if they don't do it, somebody else does, and it's.
Yeah, they have tried to wean themselves off that, though. That was a way to keep your factory running while you're dumping cars at wholesale, and it ruins the residual value. Because as soon as they come, the rent-a-car places get them for dirt cheap, and then when they come off, they sell them for whatever they can get for them and drive down the price of your used car market.
They also have a fleet title, which lowers the price of those out there. And then, of course, KBB is not going to discriminate. They just count them, Make
Cadillac has experimented in the past with supporting residual car values, promising to buy cars back at a certain value, even if you purchased it. Do you think that they should be doing that again?
I don't think it would hurt, but you need to be very careful with that, because the inflation, the cost of money, unexpected events in the economy like oil embargoes, wars, stuff like that can really turn around and make that very profitable or a massive loss. So you need to be careful with that. But they can also take a car like that, recondition it at the dealer, do find things and fix things and make them better than any individual used car lot can for less time and less money, and then store them until the market comes back up to, say, 180 days. So, yeah, I think they might look at that, but it has to be done very carefully to protect the manufacturer and the dealers. But
with the ATS, are they working their corporate contacts enough? So, like, no. The new cars come with this cool 4G built into the car, right? But should they also be turning to their 4G partner and saying, "Hey, AT&T, I think it's AT&T, as part of the deal, you have to promise to also buy, 2,000 ATSs. We want to see the ATS on your corporate campus." If you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that should work too.
As soon as you turn on the new ATS, it says, the one I got from the dealer said, this car is in demo mode, and it has the 4G hotspot, right. And the hotspot's enabled. Or worse.
Yeah, the XTS I drove did that too. Every time you turned the ignition on, it told you, that it was a 4G hotspot.
Yeah. And so should Cadillac be turning to their partners like that are wanting to put stuff in the car and say, hey, you guys are invested in the success of the car, so you need to also be getting these cars out on your corporate campuses and helping us get, market them. And we want to see the ATS on your websites, and we want to see the ATS on your in collaborative advertising, right? So when you see an AT&T commercial, it ought to show the person driving an ATS.
Because when you see the ATS commercial, it's going to show it's got AT&T 4G.
Right.
So it ought to be yeah.
Where's the ATS-V? Only mention I've seen is they're starting to homologate it for the GT3 class.
Yeah, it's coming.
Where are they in the dealers?
Yeah, they made the formal announcement. They have the pricing out now. You can order it, but it's not available in the showrooms yet.
Oh, when's it going to be?
You got to order it now for in the late spring, I think, is when it's coming. And then the CTS-V is coming in the autumn. So yeah, if the ATS-V gets here in the late spring, then it'll be a year old in 18 months, right? Mm-hmm. 15 months. So maybe that'll be my next car.
Well, sometimes a car like that is really good for getting some penetration and market share. It's not instantaneous, but it always helps.
Yeah, but do you think the CTS-V did that for the CTS? Is that why the CTS was well regarded, because of the V?
Partly.
Partly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I know a guy who was running a 502 in a 91 Corvette, and he just bought himself a 2015 CTSV, and he's tickled pink. He is tired of that damn toy that's in the shop all the time, and now he has something he can drive and outrun it, and the handling and grip is superior than anything you could ever get in a car that's been, maybe when it was new, you could have done that with some prep, but he's got it, driving it off the lot now.
And I did follow my colleague got a CTSV station wagon in the last year, and I was right behind him as we were going into the parking lot today. And I will say that's a really good-looking car out on the road.
I wanted one of them so bad.
Yeah, well, they're still out there. You know, he got this one. They were using it. This was one that they were using for high-speed testing, or at a racetrack or a closed facility, and then they sold them for with a salvage title because they had used them for high-speed testing. And so he was able to get it titled in Texas just fine.
Oh, so you washed the title in?
No, I don't think so. I think it still shows surplus, but salvage. But that was the only thing wrong with it, is that they had used it as in their test fleet at the racetrack.
So he plans on keeping that forever then? Because it's like if you go to sell that, somebody always immediately thinks it was totaled out.
Yeah, but he already got the big discount on the front end, right? That he paid much less than the going rate for a non-salvage wagon. And what I was talking to him about was keep all the paperwork from how they explained it to you about what had been done with this car and why it was marked as a salvage title and so on. So.
And also drive it for like 6 years and don't worry about how much.
Well, yeah, just keep it and enjoy it. He has a dog or multiple dogs, and so his station wagon is perfect for him.
Then when he wants to get rid of it, he just should go to a state that has relaxed title laws and wash the title and then come back and.
Well, that's what Jim always says, is he can sell it to his brother over here and his brother over there and his brother over here, and by the time it gets back, it won't even be a station wagon anymore. But I think the obvious solution here.
My wife bought a car like that once, or I bought a car.
The obvious solution here is when he gets ready to sell it, I need to tell Texas Jim to come bring his checkbook. Because if there's nothing wrong with it except it doesn't have a speed limiter on it, then it's just fine.
I would like that.
That'll be a good travel car if it suits his knee correctly.
I've only got one check left.
Okay. Save that one. It could be a few years. Yeah, he had traded an AMG Mercedes, and he has some other cars too. So, well, he didn't trade it. He still got the AMG Mercedes, but he hadn't. That's what he was driving before the V wagon, and then he's going to sell the Mercedes.
What model is the V wagon?
Is there a different model? It's black.
I mean, what year model?
They're all the same.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's a 12. My impression was it's a 12. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But he just got it.
If you do hear about him going to sell it, just for curiosity, if you do hear about him going to sell it, find out what he wants for it and call me.
I will.
Okay.
I'll find out what he wants for it, and I'll pay him that, and then tell you it's a little bit more than that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And then I'll call you and see what it's really worth. No, this guy's probably a sharper negotiator than I am, so we'll see. But I don't think he's going to sell it anytime soon. He was going to go over and write him a check to put 200 more horsepower in it, but he hadn't talked himself into it.
What's it going to get you? If you're not running time trials of some kind, I don't know what it would get you.
Well, his point of view was, as soon as he gets in a situation on the street where somebody actually outruns him, then he would go write a check.
Well, the situation on the street is going to depend on the surface, and the conditions more than the horsepower. Because with the horsepower this thing's got below 70 or 80 miles an hour, you're traction limited.
Yes, and the other cars are also.
Oh yeah, so it's really I think four-wheel drive is an advantage at very low speeds because of the additional traction, and that's one of the
Speaking of
reasons
which,
I think they need to have it.
do you think all the V series will go to four-wheel drive eventually?
I think they should all offer it. I don't think it was offered on my car when it was new. I'm not
I
sure.
agree. They at the time, I don't think they had a four-wheel drive system that wouldn't just get ripped out and left on the pavement by a 556 horsepower,
That's
or
the
now
limiting
640
factor.
horsepower.
It's a real problem, yeah.
But there are other brands. You know, the big Audis all have all-wheel drive, and some of the Lamborghinis have all-wheel drive. So it's not an impossible engineering equation. But would
No,
you prefer an all-wheel drive V series instead of rear-wheel drive?
well, I
want
would.
rear-wheel drive. I wouldn't want all-wheel drive.
The thing you got to remember about Audi and those people is they'll offer the the X drive and the four-wheel drive and so forth on models that are out there, but you offer something that has Nuremberg lap times on it, and you're not going to find the all-wheel drive on it. The Cadillac doesn't do that.
Lamborghini has all-wheel drive.
Yeah, and they have all-wheel drive on the STSV.
No,
Which is also a Sigma platform.
the STSV only had rear-wheel drive. The STS without the V, you could get an all-wheel drive.
Oh, okay. Well, there's an example of the problem.
Yeah, well, now they use that Haldane system, so maybe they need a different all-wheel drive. But one article that I had read suggested that in the future V series will all be all-wheel drive, because the only way you're going to get quicker than 3 seconds 0 to 60 is if you have all four wheels spinning.
Not spinning, gripping.
Yes. And having an opportunity at traction. What do you think? What do you think is the limit? How quick do you need a car to be, besides quicker than everything else?
Well, car and driver.
That's quick enough.
Car and driver timed a 1965 Pontiac Catalina two-door driven by, of all people, John B. DeLorean at 2.9 seconds. It's 2.5 seconds, the fastest 0 to 60 time they've ever recorded for a car with license plates.
Now, this was back in the day, though, when they would bring cars to test that weren't necessarily stock.
Right.
Well, right.
So the new ATS-V is supposed to do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. The CTS-V in 3.4 seconds. So, we've gone a whole, the CTS, the normal ATS, 5.4 to 5.7, which used to be Porsche Turbo range, right? Mm-hmm. When I was in college, the Porsche Turbo would do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Now, just a normal ATS 3.6 liter, 5.5 seconds. The CTS V Sport gets that down to 4.5 seconds. The ATS V down around 4 seconds. The CTS V around 3.5 seconds. So, how quick do you need to get to 60?
No matter how quick they make it, somebody always wants
zero. I'm fine.
As long as you're ahead of the next guy in the tow lane, then that's the end, right?
Yep. As long as I can stay ahead of him, everything's okay. Now I'm kind of like that other guy. As soon as somebody beats me, I'm ready to go write a check.
Yes. And I'm not sure what the answer there is. I guess I get to a certain point where I don't have to go. To me, it's a trade-off, too, between efficiency and if you give me a car that got 30 miles per gallon and it went 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, then I'm sold. But they're still saying either you can do this or you can do that. And I know gas costs nothing at the moment. I get that. But
next year's a different year.
Yeah.
No matter how quick they make these cars, somebody's always going to want them to go quicker.
Right.
Yes. But it's so.
What does a Corvette do? 0 to 60. What's a Corvette time?
About the same.
The fast one is the Z06, but I think it's low threes also.
Yes.
With the 650 horsepower supercharged V8.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's the issue is the the CTSV is going to weigh more than the Corvette, but it has about the same power, and so you're going to get,
couple of tenths of a second, yeah,
about the same result. I am happy that they're bringing launch control finally for the Cadillacs, and I think that'll make a big difference in the magazine results because the magazines won't publish a time higher than the launch control. They always claim that they can outperform the launch control, but at least to me, it's a limit on how slow they can claim the car was.
Well, my car doesn't need it. I can see that you had a 84 horsepower, and yes, it's going to need it even in warm weather and good pavement. But I found that if you just keep the wheel straight and have a good grip, you don't need it. That it's sort of built in the touring mode just as it goes. I never tried the. Well, you know, I'm not sure whether I did or not, but I never had a problem with launch.
Now, Jim and I tested a CTSV on tarmac pavement in a parking lot, and I couldn't get it off of the line without spinning the tires. And so that day I could have, you know, it just depends on what pavement you're on, really.
And also new pavement. Yeah. That was new pavement too, Bruce, remember?
Yep. Yep. And it was a fun day, but it could have used launch control that day.
Well, until I got the better tires, after I had the car several months, I wouldn't have said that because it was traction limited at launch. But with the new one, the grip is there with any tires, which I've had over a year now. And it hasn't diminished. They're also wearing quite well, which means I do not spin them a lot. I never did like spinning tires. To me, that's loss of control, loss of performance, and
loss of money.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's just not what you buy the car for. You know.
Okay. Last topic before we wrap up. I've already kept you 20 minutes past our 30-minute session.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Okay. You get your choice. Price is no object for a weekend Cadillac. It's only going to be a weekend Cadillac. You get its own garage. You got a place to keep it. Don't worry about that. Just a weekend Cadillac could be any year, any model, any style within that model. Got to be a Cadillac. What would you choose for your weekend? Only drive it when it's a nice day Cadillac.
I'd want that 1953 Ghia Cadillac that's been removed last week.
Yes, the Rita Hayworths.
Yeah.
I would either want the new CTSV that's coming out, or I would want a '59 convertible.
I'd go for the manual on that basis, just on weekends, not as a daily driver.
Yes.
But I'd want the coupe CTSV, the new one. Putt.
There you go. Kevin, what do you think?
76 Fleetwood Brougham d'Elegance.
There you go.
What?
Yeah.
76 Fleetwood Brougham d'Elegance.
With the 500?
Yeah.
The 501? Now, why that particular model?
That's just models that I remember from my youth.
So
before I could afford them, you know.
Yeah,
before I could afford them.
Now, but you'd want the sedan and not one of the convertibles? 76, only the Eldo came in a convertible.
Eldorado. Yeah, that would work too.
No, it's a completely different car, Kevin.
So
this one's front-wheel drive in a convertible, and that one's rear-wheel drive and got puffy seats on it. So
they both have comfortable seats.
Yeah.
Yes, but would that make a big difference to you between the front-wheel drive Eldos and the rear-wheel drive Fleetwood Brougham?
Drivetrain wouldn't.
For a weekend car, it wouldn't bother me.
No, it wouldn't make any difference to me. It's the low-speed cruising experience in good weather. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, I'm actually split. I think if I was picking a weekend car right now, I would be split between, and garage space was not an object. I would be split between still getting a XLR just because I love seeing those out on the road. I've seen more of those in the last couple of weeks, and their look on the road and the hardtop convertible and the wind, so that you can take it anywhere and park it anywhere and drive it year round. but I'm also a big fan of like one of the 50s models Cadillacs, right? Or a 40s,
like that.
a 40s convertible.
I like that 59 with a big tail fins.
I like the 57 Eldorado.
Well, I love the look of
quads.
the 40s cars. Now, you know, I'd want it to be original, but at the same time, I'd wish it was had air conditioning and all the creature comforts from my V, which it won't have. You know, it's not going to have all the gadgets. But so I might want a friend to have that. Cultivate a friend that has that as a weekend car that needs me to come pick it up and wash it on the weekends.
What was that video you posted? That guy that had that 1931 Cadillac. That was a neat car that he.
Yes.
That he almost drove that as a daily driver. It sounded like.
So let's talk about that, because that was an interesting thing that somebody said about. They were talking. Maybe it was on the Austin forum, because since we picked up this Austin recently, my son picked up this Austin recently. I've been paying more attention to the Austin forum, but basically they were saying, you find a car that you really like, and that you just drive that for 40 years. You know, get out of the business of getting another car and just pick out a car that you really like a whatever, you know, your 76 Fleetwood Brougham, and then just keep it repaired and in good upkeep and drive it forever.
I never figured on selling the Eldorado. Never. But
Kevin, what would you say?
I'm halfway there in my Fleetwood, my early 90s Fleetwood. I've had it for 22 years now.
Magnificent.
How often do you drive it?
It's put away right now, but because it's got all the snow on the ground. But from May until November, yeah, I drive it as a daily drive. I drive it to work most every day.
Well, there you go.
If it's rainy or crappy, I usually don't drive it because it's usually clean. So I drive one of the other ones. But yeah, for the most part, I drive that.
Yeah, I wish I had a better pattern to keep my car clean. That's one of the things I'm not doing right, is I'm not keeping it as clean as I would prefer. Texas Jim, you were going to say?
Well, I bought an A model brand new, and I kept it 21 years. Probably the best car. I should still have it. That's probably the best car I've ever owned in my entire life.
Yeah, that was the last year of the. Well, no, 81 was, but it was the last year of the 80 and 81 that was the tail end of the big block engine and it
had the 368 in it.
Yeah, 368, and it had the good rear end, the heavy duty rear end in it too.
Right, it was. I had almost 250,000 miles on it when I sold it. Nice. But it still didn't use any oil. It'd start just by touching the key, almost 250,000 miles, and I'd put one set of plugs in it.
That's amazing.
And it never had the valve covers off of it. Never had the carburetor worked on. I mean, nothing ever went wrong with it. It just worked.
Yeah, those are.
Which is ideal. And as long as things don't go wrong with them, and you know, that's what I'm keeping in the back of my mind with my V, is that it's so unique that if something does go wrong with it, I'm going to have to get my other checkbook out. Okay, any other topics we need to cover before we wrap up, or any last thoughts on tonight's topics?
Save the CT6 or whatever for next week.
Yeah.
And we'll find out more about it in March. But yeah, the CT6. What features are you looking forward to in the CT6? Was one of our suggested topics. I don't think it made the final cut, but it's a good topic.
A Fleetwood model.
I think what we're going to see with it is more autonomous driving. My wife's ATS will slow down and speed up on its own, but I think you're going to see the CT6 will have more autonomous capabilities, where it may be able to do, obviously it'll do parking, but it may be able to do lane keeping and so on better than the ATSs now do. So, okay, any last words, Kevin?
No.
Thanks for being on. It's good to see you. Texas Jim, anything to share?
No, don't reckon. Just glad to be here.
Excellent. Cadillac Jim, anything you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I think I've shared entirely too much already. I've had a wonderful time tonight.
Guys, thanks for being on. If you're watching at home and you wish you had been on to chat live with us, you may be welcome. Contact me on Google Plus and let me know that you want to be on. And if it makes good sense, then I'd be happy to invite you the next time. We do these on Thursday nights. What happens is at about 7:15 Central Time or 8:15 Eastern Time, then we boot up the Hangout and get everything ready behind the scenes. Then we go live right at 7:30 Central Time, 5:30 Pacific Time, 8:30 Eastern Time, and we do publish the. This week we tried to go back to the discipline of having the topics published in the CaddyInfo forum ahead of time so that you can get your opinion together. It's a very casual conversation. If you haven't picked up on that we're also willing to just talk about whatever comes up. Hold on, guys. I'm going to hit stop broadcast and then we'll go off air and then have a moment before we wrap up.